Hey guys, welcome to my YouTube channel. And today we're talking about how to actually succeed with building AI agents in n8n or make.com. And how do we get from copying to creating? So I'm going to explain everything to you guys today, and hopefully it all makes sense. So basically, what if I told you that focusing on other people's n8n templates or make.com templates is actually what is holding you back from building your own game-changing AI automations, right? So let me explain, right? So in my own personal journey, when it comes to AI automation, I spend countless hours just going through YouTube, looking for like the best automation to create long form content or to best automation to automate a CRM or create AI agents. Like there's so many, automation tutorials out there, right? But, if any of you guys are like me and you actually went ahead and, joined these communities or, downloaded the templates from Gumroad or wherever they were, hosting them at, you realize that when you actually try to set them up, either you might run into issues that obviously were not apparent in the video that you watched, or like you just get stuck and you're not able to figure it out and there's like not really anyone to help or talk to, or maybe you do go all the way and you are able to figure it out and you are able to set up the automations, but something's off, right? It doesn't just feel like the video you had watched, right? It's not as clean. It doesn't seem to work, as smoothly as you had seen. And this is the point I actually want to get into a little bit, right? So what I want us to have here is a new perspective, right? Let's flip the script and think about this. Instead of us having to struggle with ready-made solutions, I want us to get to a place where we are actually the creators of automations that work for you and the ideas and businesses that you guys are trying to build, right? And especially if you're Black or you're an African builder like me, the people that we're seeing on YouTube, for the most part, aren't building automations with our problems or our solutions in mind, right? They're building for what they know and what they're used to, right? So we can't continue to build or rely on someone else's blueprint. We need to get into the place where we're able to build our own solutions. And I also want to make this point, right, that I'm not just talking about this on a technical perspective, right? So understanding the technicalities of how to build these automations is one thing, but the other thing is actually how do you get to the point where you're able to come up with the ideas and the workflow for how you build something that works for you and the people that you're trying to build for. And that's what I'm going to explain now. So, let's talk about the first section I have here, right? Which is the illusion of plug and play and why copying alone fails, right? And so basically, here's the idea. You know, if you go to IKEA and you buy furniture, obviously, like when you go to IKEA and you see it, the furniture looks good, right? It's in the IKEA store, you see everything. But when you bring it to your house, obviously, your house is custom made for you, right? There's already, well, you know, if you don't live in a bachelor pad, you know, you have a wife or a girlfriend, I'm sure they tailor the house to the taste, to the vibe that you guys are going for, right? Like there is a particular vision that you have for your house. So just going to IKEA and just bringing in like something random that looks cool and bringing your house is not going to work, right? So you're going to have to break it down. You're going to have to understand, oh, okay, is this color going to work here? Where are we going to position it, right? There's a lot that goes in to seeing a ready-made, furniture set in IKEA and then having it actually work inside your house, right? So it may look good in IKEA, but that doesn't mean it's going to fill your space, right? Rarely does it ever immediately from IKEA fill your space perfectly. You have to do some adjustments and massaging. And that's kind of what we're thinking about when we're talking about copying, other people's n8n templates or make.com templates and bringing them to work for you. So here, right, as you guys can see this in this, Xcali drawer, we're saying plug and play templates don't usually work the best when you actually bring them into your own environment and you try to adopt them to your workflows, right? Same way IKEA furniture doesn't work just for your house without making some adjustments, right? And another thing you need to understand is most of the YouTube templates that we're seeing, these are basic demos. These are not the things that they sold to their clients, right? These are not real world solutions. These are probably things they spent an hour, 2 hours just to mock up for YouTube. So when you go and you copy these templates and then you try to make them work, yeah, it is expected that there are going to be lots of issues or errors because again, these really are just demos. So it's nothing malicious on the part of the YouTubers or the creators or anything like that. It's really just about tempering our expectations and understanding what we're trying to do when we see these demos, right? So we need to get into the habit of understanding what are these templates we're seeing and how do we actually use them to maximize their value to us. And we're in the world of what? AI automations, right? We're not just building automations, that are separate from anything else. And the thing you need to understand about AI is that currently they're very good, but by nature, AI is non-deterministic. And by non-deterministic, I mean, you're not able to predict, every single time what the output of an AI is going to be, right? So whether you're using ChatGPT, Claude, Mistral, whatever AI platform you use, it always introduces an aspect of unpredictability. Now, there are ways, by tampering with the parameters to make it more deterministic and more predictable. But for the most part, right, the AIs are a bit unpredictable. So what does that mean? That means you may see something work on a YouTube video, but because they're incorporating AI into it, when you bring it into your, own environment, your own n8n workspace, it fails. It breaks. Why? Because AI does not work reliably every single time. And so that brings in the nature of prompt engineering, right? Is the prompt that the creator used for their template actually good? Maybe it worked that one time they made the video, but it's not a good prompt anyway. So again, we always need to think, okay, these templates we're getting, there's a lot of work we need to do. We need to do it to make them work, right? Is your prompt engineering good skills? Like there is so much that we need to think about. And so this is how I want us to reshape it. I think about it like a journey, right? The templates that we're working with in n8n, these are more like starting points, and don't think of them as destinations. So if you're getting a template from a YouTuber, from a community, think of these more of just like places to start, places to actually just get your feet wet, right? And then think about, how do I improve on this? How do I adapt this to my own use case? Like that's what really matters. So again, if you're in Nigeria, if you're in Kenya, if you're in DC, if you're in Joburg, like these are all global, different places that have different needs, different cultures, different ideas of what we're trying to build. And you must know how to adapt in order to thrive in the market, in order to serve the people who you're trying to build for. Like you can't just be the builder or engineer for everyone. It doesn't work like that, right? You have to understand who you're trying to build for, who your audience is, and then build for them, because that's what really changes things at the end of the day. And that's what makes you a successful business person at the end of the day, in my humble opinion. So let's get to the second section I have here, right? How do we build these, what I call process thinking skills, right? So at the end of the day, right, we need to understand, you can go grab a template, right, for something you search on YouTube. And then you now get into the space of, how do I make this template work, right? But is that really what matters? Like, let's say you debug everything that this, YouTuber or creator left for you in their own template. Okay. And so now you have their automation, which has been fixed by you, but you need to understand for yourself, what do you actually want to automate? Because whatever template you just got, or whatever starting point you had, it wasn't built with your idea in mind. It wasn't built with the process that you were thinking to fix in mind, right? So we need to learn, and I'm going to show you this in the next section, how exactly do we have that skill of actually building up the process thinking skills? How do we actually have that skill of piece by piece, block by block, building up to what we actually want to do? And I think that's really what sets up a good engineer, or in this space, an AI workflow automation specialist, from someone who is not good, right? The difference is you deeply understand your unique workflows. When you copy and paste a workflow from someone else, and even if you fix it, you may be able to understand the gist of it and the logics, but like, you don't understand why he or she made those decisions they made as they were building this up. So for yourself, you actually need to sit down and think about it and actually deeply understand the workflows you're building, especially if you're going to go out there and try to sell them to other people, or even just use them to make your own work processes better. It's like tailored clothing, right? Like, you can go to the store, Macy's, buy a suit, and cool, it looks cool, but it always hits different when you go and have someone actually tailor you and make, a suit that looks dapper, that looks fly, that is literally tailored to who you are as a person, right? There's a big difference there. So yeah, we're not saying you need to be a coding genius. You don't need to be, from a technical background, right? I know people in finance and in marketing who are all building powerful automations with no code or low code, right? And if you have that coding background, even better, that allows you to utilize that to build even more powerful uses of tools like n8n or make.com and build even better automations. But what we're saying here is, we're talking about process thinking skills. These are skills that anyone can have, right? It's about, how do we think in a way that logically gets us from one step to another? So, like I mentioned, this is what we need to be thinking about. So let's talk about, the missing piece, right? How do we actually build this process thinking skill, right? And so high level, step one is we need to identify one core repetitive task that you wish to eliminate, right? So this is just one thing you do at work, one thing you do in your business, one thing you just do in your personal life admin that is so repetitive and you're like, I just wish I could automate this. That's the starting point, right? So you start from here, you start to talk to people in your circle, then you start to reach out to customers, and then you're building a thriving business when you're able to eliminate all of these particular tasks, repetitive tasks that people need to eliminate. And I think it's best to always start with yourself. The second step I would say here is, okay, sketch the steps manually. So kind of like I'm going to show you here is write down these particular steps that you take, like as detailed as possible. Write down every single step you take to achieve this particular task, and then we can begin to break down how we could actually put this in a form of an automation. And then at that point, this is step 3. So we're not at step 1. This is step 3, where I'm saying then go out on YouTube in your communities and look for templates. And then those templates are going to serve as components to the overarching automation idea that you're trying to build. So you see, at this point, you're not just trying to take someone else's thing and then go from there. You already have an idea of what you want to build. And then you can go out and say, hey, I want, whatever this person is building to be part of my automation, my bigger flow, right? So that gives you, again, a bigger, unique understanding of it. You're not just picking something else that someone used, but you're incorporating the templates and the things that other people have built in order to bring your own grand vision to life. And I'm going to share a quote at the end of this video that encapsulates this entire idea. The last thing we do after this, right, is we iterate and rigorously test, right? So you need to make sure that you're embracing failure as feedback. It's never a bad thing to fail. It's only a bad thing if you give up. And so the idea here is that, with your automations, it might be frustrating, right? Trying to bring different pieces together, trying to get a vision, to show in the form of an automation. But again, that failure is how we grow. And again, we join communities, we go on YouTube and we find people who we can connect with that can help us get to that ultimate goal of what we're trying to build. The next thing I'll say is, think of the concept of minimal viable automation, right? Or MVP, minimal viable product. The idea is start small and then scale when you've been able to prove to yourself or to whoever you're working with that what you're trying to build actually works and solves the problem. So a lot of people like to build these crazy automations that have like sprawling nodes and stuff. That's all nice and good. But the idea really is like, okay, let's get something that works. Does it work the best? Sometimes simpler is better. I always say that. So, you don't need to have the most complex, crazy automation. Sometimes just get something simple on the board and then we can go from there. And so let me go through this. Like, so this is the steps, right? So again, step 1, right? We're going to identify a core repetitive task. Like I mentioned, step 2, sketch out the steps manually. So I like to use, and how I actually build this thing is something called Mermaid. I'm just going to tap out here. This is called, sorry, let me erase this. It's called Mermaid, right? So Mermaid is this tool that just allows you to create like these diagrams. And what you could just do is go to something like ChatGPT and say, hey, this is what I want to build. I want to, build an automation that watches for an email and then responds automatically to the person with an AI response, right? So basically in this flow, we would have we'd have something like this, right? We'd have email. We would have the AI that would ingest the email. And then we would have response, right? That we send out. Yeah. So now we have this flow, right? You could then just tell this to ChatGPT and have it create like a mermaid diagram, which would look like this. So it's an example of what mermaid looks like, right? It's code that just looks like this. Now generated with ChatGPT, and then it gives you something like that, right? So you don't have to spend tons of hours, creating this in PowerPoint or something like that, right? Just, go to ChatGPT, tell it to create your mermaid diagram, and then you have your steps out like manually, plainly right there. And then that allows you to start to envision, if automation is actually hitting all of the steps that you currently do manually in this process, and if it looks like something that can actually be automated, right? Let me erase this. Oh, actually, I'll retype mermaid there. But let me erase that. Then, oh, you know what, actually, I'll actually just give a demo of how we're able to do that. So I'm just going to go to ChatGPT now, and then I'm going to type in, can you create mermaid code that shows process of receiving email using AI to generate a response and sending a response to the sender. Okay. So this is gonna, it's gonna wait for a bit. Cool. It's very simple. Then you can come to a tool like Excalibur, which is what I like to work with. We literally just come here and paste it in. And boom, right here, we have like a real life, this is the idea we had in our mind. And now we see it in the form of like a workflow diagram. And that allows us to get into that process of, okay, now I understand the different components I need to build, right? So receive an email. Okay. Second step, extract email content. Okay. Process that content with AI, generate a draft response, review and response, send response to sender, right? Then we could take this, go back to the AI and say, what are the particular tools I need for, each of these, right? So here I could say, okay, what are the particular tools I may need for each step? Boom. And then it might say something like, okay, if we're using make.com n8n, these are the nodes for the receive email step. For the clean, these are some other nodes. And so this is literally just showing you what you might use in every single automation, depending on what you're using. Then I say, okay, you might need to use the OpenAI. Draft response, you might use Markdown to HTML or plain text formatter. Optional review, send it to Slack, send response, bonus login, right? So again, that's already gotten you like 50% of the way of like starting, and then you can then go to those make.com n8n Zapier and start building out these automations for yourself. And that just shows you the power of like actually process thinking, building things for yourself, how to think, how to build, step by step. And then from this point on, right, now that we know this, we could then actually go onto YouTube and say, hey, we go something like this, right? Then we say, something like, I need an n8n automation for receiving emails, right? Or something like that. And then here we can look, okay, how to build an email agent node. There's so many things we can then look, and at this point, we already know what we're trying to build, right? We already know how, whatever they're saying, maybe not everything that particular video fits our use case, but we know which parts we need because we already have the workflow, in a very processable format, right? And again, if you're doing this for a business, like just imagine how much value you're bringing to your customers when you have like this kind of SOP or format that you can go with them manually step by step to show how exactly you're going to build for them, right? That's a lot of value you're providing. The next thing is you don't always need to go crazy with your workflows, right? They don't have to be like, crazy, spiraling, right? We're just talking about, break them down, right? Like do it step by step. Like in software engineering, that's something we call modularization, right? Is keeping all the parts of the code abstracted as much as possible so that it's easier to manage. And that is also something we need to bring, to these workflows, right? As I mentioned, make sure you iterate, you test regularly, especially when it comes to things like, AI. There's this thing called evals. And I'm just going to type it here. Evals. So if you're building anything with AI, you need to make sure you're doing evals, because evals are the way we know if our prompts are good, if the AI agents we're building are actually working as expected. And if you're building without doing evals, it's kind of just like playing with fire, because, the AIs can, as we mentioned, act unpredictably. But again, like I'm mentioning, when you have these templates, the creators obviously are not running evals on their demos because it's not important. They just need us for like one video. And if you watch that and you like the video, then that's good. But if you take that and you try to set it to someone else without doing something like evals, then, it's only bound to end in failure at some point. But again, embrace failure as feedback. So it's fine if you fail, but make sure you're learning from it. That's the most important thing. Build a minimum viable automation, so as simple as possible so you can show the value. scale when proven. Mention that. And you know, like I'm saying lean on these YouTube videos, lean on real projects you can find, lean on communities, lean on, LinkedIn, like, message me, leave comments. Like I'm saying, we're all in this together to build things that actually work, right? And again, for everything you're building, make sure you analyze and ask yourself, is this really what I'm trying to do? And is this really the best way to solve it? That you need to analyze each question step by step in order to build automations that really do work and matter. Join teardown sessions. So yeah, join WhatsApp communities, use scrapers, outreach posts, like that, different ways and things that you can use to just, level up your game, right? So again, use as much as you can to understand, right? Last thing I'll say is you're not alone, right? Learn by building is what I think is the best thing you can do, right? Is continue to build. Don't give up. This is a crazy age we're in, and this is just the beginning. So I'm just trying to get this message out there so as much people as possible, especially people of color, can understand, like, this is the time to hop on this wave. And, I'm just trying to share my knowledge on how I've been able to get there somewhat, and hopefully other people can learn from me, and even, we can all grow into this together. So, don't feel alone. In my description, I have a community of Black and African builders that, we're just going to be learning from each other, helping each other level up in business in these automations, practice this process, thinking together. So if you're interested, just fill that out. And, I think, this is going to be the future for us. So, getting to the end, section 4 here I have is the hidden ROI, right? What you gain by creating and not just copying, right? So, when you're creating, you're learning skills, right? Skills that actually last, right? Not just how to copy and paste, but you're learning independence. You're learning career resilience, right? You're not relying on anyone else but your own knowledge, because you know how to get, so it doesn't matter the tool at this point, right? Because you know how to get from point 0 to point 100. You know how to get from A to B because you understand how to go these steps one by one, like I just demonstrated earlier in this video, right? So it's that mindset that leads to, long-term mastery and not just instant results, right? So, when you're building these automations, see it as an ongoing experiment. Make sure you have these evals. Make sure you're regularly testing, iterating. It's not just a buy and forget or set up and forget, right? Like, I'm saying that we need more Black and African creators to get into this game, right? Like right now, I'm not seeing too many of us here. So that's kind of where I'm coming from. And, we can't just be consumers of these things, because that's how a lot of times we end up getting left out, right? We need to position ourselves as builders, as foremost experts in that space. And then we open the doors to ownership, influence, leadership in tech positions, in your companies, right? Like understanding how AI works. Like these are not things that are far away from the average person. I'm really saying it, right? Like these things have been democratized really a lot. And, hopefully more channels like this like come up to just show that this can be done by anyone and anybody. So, I really do think like if you guys go about building your own flows, you really will build, confidence. And again, like I said, I'm trying to build a community of like-minded people who are trying to grow. And so hopefully, there are people out there who are, looking to actually level up when it comes to AI automation, and engineering as well. And so here's a quote. I'm not sure if it was by Steve Jobs or Picasso, but it says, "Good artists copy, great artists steal." And what he means by this quote is that good artists just see something, copy it, put it out there as their own. And sure, like people might like that, but what a great artist does, and I think what he means here by steal, is that they take aspects of other artists, right? They incorporate them into their own piece of work, and they come up with something completely unique and imaginative, right? They've stolen from different people, different places, different eras, different imaginations, and the work that you see them come out with. We see this with Steve Jobs and what he created with Apple. Obviously, Picasso is one of the greatest artists of all time. They learnt on the knowledge of others, incorporated different, components into their work and created something great, right? Whereas you see others who will just create duplicates, and, it only goes so far. And I think it's even more than just like the actual product they created themselves, but more about what, when you're exposed to so many different types of, art, or for Steve Jobs, the tech or the business strategies, like their own knowledge will become far deeper than anyone else, and they're able to use that to really grow what they're trying to build. So yeah, like I said, I encourage you guys to, in the comments, just share some of your own, fails or, some of what I'm talking about where you try to like copy or build on someone else's template and you just couldn't get through it. And how you found your own breakthroughs, right? I like to see, you guys talk about, your own, uh, feelings when it comes to like, everything I've talked about when it comes to like thinking in processes, when it comes to building automations or anything in this world. I think it's all the same. And, if there are any tasks that you guys are working on that are trying to automate, put in the comments, describe it. Let's talk. Let's brainstorm together. I'll respond to everyone. And like I said, make sure you sign up for the waitlist for the community. That's going to be launching soon so that we can start, working with each other, building each other up and then, just getting to another level. And make sure you subscribe because I'm going to also put some templates out there just to help because I'm not demonizing them. I'm just saying we need to be thoughtful in the way we use them. So I'll be describing some of the most useful ones for me and people I've built automations for. And again, especially if you're Black or you're African and you're building in this space, I really want to connect. I really want to grow a community for us. Like I said, I've not seen too many people in the space doing this that come from a similar background as me. I'm from Nigeria, by the way. So, yeah, I'm really excited to see where this can go. Thank you for watching this. And I'll see you soon.